They're going to have a really strong run of it, actually. Oh, we just spoke to her, Katarina Luescher, and now she's making her way into the kart. So actually, let's kind of head in that sort of direction, and then we kind of get the sort of the run of the pit stop. So great to see that the level of the driving talent here is really, really strong. It's not just amateurs that are going racing in karting just because they can. There are actually some really strong drivers. Here's Mr. Saturday getting himself ready. I'm starting to learn people's nicknames now as well, you see. It's Mr. Lund, who is known as Mr. Saturday. He's going to have a difficult day tomorrow, isn't he? Right, so as the driver's now getting themselves ready for another pit stop, we're going to see how it all works out. Interesting, we got people there with a choice of light as well, that they have a sort of a flashing wristband on the arm so that people can see them when they're out and about. But let's watch the process. You see, Katarina Luescher actually has sort of a seat insert. She also has an electronic device that she'll put onto her steering wheel, which will give her the benefit of the extra lap times. And you can see that they're going to swap everything over and make sure everything goes according to plan. So everybody getting themselves into position to make sure that they are in the correct position, ready for the changeover. And obviously that kart number has now been called to the pits here. You can see on the digital readout that the particular karts are now being called into the pits at a particular time, and then when they get the green light, that's when they can head over to the karts there in the holding area, and then they'll be able to get themselves into the pit stop. So we get to watch this process at night. But there's a lot to remember for the driver. You have to remember, of course, that you have the correct amount of ballast, and you have to weigh it here on the scales to make sure that it's all correct. You have to make sure that you have the, for this particular team, they have a steering wheel monitor as well. Not every team has that. It's an optional extra. So they can choose to have one of those if they so wish to. But there's also a radio comms link, again, which is optional. You don't have to run one, but some teams obviously feel that it's quite necessary in order to make sure they can run a strong race. But this is when the race gets really difficult at this point. They've had daylight all the way. They may have had slippery conditions, but they've had daylight all the way. The track changes completely when it gets to night, because not only do you have limited visibility, but obviously the track temperature drops, the air temperature drops, so you get a little bit more dew, especially when the wind is strong and the wind is high. So you have that after effect of having reduced grip and reduced confidence in the kart. So that's when things get particularly slippery out there on the course. So while they're about to get the green light command, let's see if we can head over, and we'll find our way over to the pit stop position. Now those lights actually correspond to the lights that we have on the top of the pit board here. So you've got green, yellow, red and blue, and that's where they are told on the timing beacon there what color they're going to have to walk over to when the time comes. So the number 6 team, the Creatia team, just putting their steering monitor on. Now make sure you put the wristband, make sure you do the scan. There you go, they did it. Well done, very good. That was Desplat making sure that he scanned his wristband, and you have to make sure you do that. We obviously heard from the British team earlier they forgot to do that on one of their stops, so they ended up getting a penalty. And we saw a couple of teams do that earlier on in the broadcast, actually. They just drive through, and it's one thing you have to remember to do. You have to check your wristband as you come through. So we're now just waiting for these final couple of teams to get the call to come in. We'll switch sides, actually, so that we can get a little bit more of a look. The heroes of the race for me, obviously we've got the marshals out there doing their thing, but also here you've got the incredible engineering team, and they've got 12 karts here all the time, ready to go, that they obviously maintain. They make sure that they're going to be operational. They're going to make sure they're just as fast and competitive as the karts that are out on the circuit. But why 12? Well, it's a nice sort of a large number to have as a spare backup, but obviously the karts come into the pits from the entry to the pit lane here. They are handed to the mechanics, who then fuel them up here. Let's watch the process, actually, because we've got the kart about to come into the pits here. So the driver gets out of the kart. The number plate and transponder is taken off the kart. In fact, we're going to have 2 or 3 karts coming through. So they will all come through together, and they get out of the kart. And so then it becomes part of the running for the driver to then make sure they've put the ballast into the kart correctly. The number plate goes on. They swap drivers, they swap karts. But of course the kart they come into the pits with is not the kart they go out with. It becomes one of these 12. So you always get to change your kart as well as change your driver. So back out into the race will go the number 18. And again, you have to make sure you get your wristband. Scan it on the way out. There you go. When the light goes green, you know that that's perfectly acceptable. Here's a Katarina Luescher of the RS Racing team for Switzerland. She is a very talented racing driver, actually, Katarina Luescher. She represented Switzerland in the FIA Karting Racing Championships of Europe and the World Championship back in 2020 and 2021. She was part of the Richard Mille Talent Academy, which looks after young talented racing drivers up the racing ladder, and has gained some incredible competitors from various different competitions. They're very much in comeback mode at the moment because they really struggled in the wet conditions. But Katarina Luescher currently races in GT4 and GT3 sports car racing, both in her native Switzerland and across Europe. So she has great credence and great ability, having made the switch to sports car racing. And here she is, continuing her journey as she runs through. And again, the wristbands, they have to scan them before they head out onto the circuit again. And then, as you can see, there's a bit of a queue build-up. Let's go and have a look. We've got a bit of a queue building up here at the edge of the pit lane because you've got several teams waiting to go back out onto the circuit again because they have to do it by the timer. You see, you've got the timer there. They have to make sure that they come through in 2 minutes for the pit stop. 2 minutes is the absolute minimum. If you do it in under 2 minutes, then you end up incurring another penalty. So the drivers are working very hard to ensure that they calculate just when they leave the pits again. So there we go. The two karts are going out onto the circuit together, and they actually assisted each other.